Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Kudos to Ian. This is strong. This is if you want to get involved in Chris Grayling's he's sponsoring my new business, Super Ships. All you have to do is you have to stand there banging your heels together going, I do believe in ferries. I do believe in ferries. Superships.co.uk. Sailing from Great Yarmouth to Tokyo. I know it sounds tough, but if we believe, we can do it. 4 minutes after 12 is the time. Okay, I didn't know whether we were going to do this or not. I took what I call... sound like Miranda's mum now. I took what I like to call, it's a mood-based decision. If I was feeling perky enough, we'd go in on the light-hearted conversation at 12 o'clock. And if I was feeling a little bit more serious-minded, we'd go in on the serious one. Oddly, before we broke up for Christmas, I was very, very keen to talk about the university situation in this country and the attractiveness or otherwise of a university education for young people. And it's back in the news again today. So we'll leave that in the proverbial fridge, or the metaphorical fridge, I think, to be correct. And we will talk about this story here, which I have to tell you, I watched the fireworks on in the small hours of yesterday morning. I think I was watching the London fireworks. I hadn't drunk that much, but we were quite distracted, you know. It was just the four of us for New Year's, so that we could spend time together and enjoy it properly. And we had a really lovely time. Went to see a matinee of Mamma Mia in the West End, the West End show. If you haven't seen that show yet, it's really lovely. Between you and me, I wasn't expecting to enjoy it that much, but I absolutely loved it. So we did that, and then we went out for tea, and then we went home and watched the Taylor Swift concert on Netflix, which, again, I would highly, highly recommend. I think if we could put Taylor Swift in charge of everything, the world would be a much, much finer and happier place. I really do. And then, just for the countdown, just put the telly on for the countdown. We're playing games and stuff, but I thought the telly's good for the countdown. And I watched it. I can't tell you what channel was on, but there were fireworks. I presume it was London. Did they put the Edinburgh fireworks? Some years you've got Edinburgh. I didn't see Jules Holland much this year. Was Jules Holland around on the telly? I hardly watched any telly this Christmas. I must up my game next year. Get some more man hours in on the sofa. But I watched the fireworks, and I didn't notice anything European Union-ish about it at all. Did you? Did you notice it? Was it really clear? I mean, it's like the Queen's hat. Do you remember the Queen's hat, when the Queen wore a hat that looked like the European Union flag? And so some people got really cross about the Queen's hat. There's a line, well, I wrote it actually, so it's a little bit uncomfortable introducing it in this way. So there's a line that I wrote in my book about how half the country is always going on about how snowflakey the other half is and how easily offended they are. And yet they're the ones that have kittens when a primary school changes its toilet signage, or a student union in Manchester takes a Rudyard Kipling poem off the wall, or a story that isn't true about a flag being removed from a council building appears in your Facebook feed. So all of the people who claim that the rest of the country is really easily offended, snowflakes, they're the biggest sort of... They have the thinnest skin of all, don't they, these people? Because they're upset about some fireworks. What I would like to do is... I'd like you to teach me how to get angry about this, okay? Because right now, it seems to me to be pathetic to the point of incredulity that a firework display... I know Sadiq Khan is a Muslim, so certain corners of the right-wing media will treat him very differently from how they would a white mayor, whatever their party. But I don't think we need to go down that route today. Can you teach me how to get angry about some fireworks? Bearing in mind I'm not a dog. I mean, I don't mean getting scared or getting angry about environmental impact or being kept awake at 1 o'clock in the morning because the fella at number 27 is setting off a barrage of fireworks. I just mean, here are some fireworks on New Year's Eve, which apparently have been designed in part to send a message out to the world that we, despite having voted to leave the European Union, we remain a major European city, and all of our European friends will hopefully feel just as welcome here now. And if central government isn't doing enough to make them feel welcome, it's kind of like charging them money to stay at home, then at that local government level, certainly as the capital city of these magnificent islands, we will send out a message to our European friends that although you're feeling a little bit bit bruised and beleaguered. We still love you. You're still very welcome. Here's some fireworks. How does anyone end up getting angry about that? You almost know before reading the story who's going to appear in it, don't you? Andrew Bridgen, the bloke who thought he was entitled to an Irish passport because he was English. Ah, yes, there is a sage for our times. Let's give that genius a ring and ask him what he thinks about fireworks. Hello, Mr. Bridgen. Could you give me some really furious words about fireworks, please? Because there's some ones on the Millennium Wheel that look a bit like the European Union. Oh, my God, they've done what with fireworks? It's outrageous. And then, who's Roger Helmer? Was he a UKIP person? Why has he been quoted in the Times? A former MEP for the Conservatives and later UKIP. He wrote on Twitter. So this is the serious element of my question. I would put it to you, as a former denizen of Fleet Street, I remember doing these stories on slow news days. Luckily, I never worked on Parley or on the political side of things. But there are people who are described as renter quotes. And if you are working on a story that needs a quote, then you don't want to ring around loads and loads of people trying to persuade someone to say something relevant to your story. You need a renter quote. So you ring someone, you just put a penny in the slot, and then they start spluttering furiously. And if you can't even be bothered to do that, luckily these days you can just go on Twitter. So you say to yourself, what sort of a Herbert is likely to be genuinely exercised by fireworks because they look a bit European-y? And then you go, I know, I'll ring Andrew Bridgen and I'll have a quick look at Roger Helmet's Twitter feed. And that's a story. And fair play to you. I'd have done the same thing when I had space to fill in a newspaper. But I'm interested now in real people. You see, this for me is a real person. Mary is a real person. She says, I never noticed that, James. I just thought how amazing they looked. And they did look amazing. I love fireworks. Even on the telly, I quite like fireworks, although it's a slightly odd. It's a bit like having a bath in your wellies. It's not the full experience. But normal people who aren't a bit bonkers, did anyone really get angry about these fireworks? I mean, genuinely. It seems... I start this year as the last one ended. It seems comical to me. And this is what's so dangerous about things that start off being comical, is that, you know, like the Chelsea conversation we had in the last hour, you start off singing Yid Army back to Spurs fans singing Yid Army, and 5 years down the line you're making hissing noises as a reference to the gas chambers. So you start off getting angry about some fireworks and you end up being one of those people who's going to punch someone for speaking Spanish on the streets. Or you end up being on the same side of history as one of those fellows who's going to punch someone for speaking Spanish on the streets of Hastings, or wherever it may be. It also breaks my golden rule of radio phone-ins, which is telling you why you shouldn't care about something and then inviting you to ring in and tell me that you don't care at all. But can anyone intelligent explain to me why this has provoked anger? Is there any real anger there, or is it just 2 minutes hate? That's what I want from you now. 0345 6060 973. We are a European city going through an utterly unnecessary period of alienation from Europe. And you can write your Twitter profile about love Europe, hate the EU, but we both know that's meaningless. You're talking to people now. You're talking to 3 million people who live here and have been made to feel less welcome than they did 3 years ago. Okay? Now, that only applies to European Union citizens. That doesn't apply to anybody else from Timbuktu or Kuala Lumpur. They haven't had the terms and conditions of their residency in this country changed. They haven't had any even vague change made to their status, to their terms. So we don't need to send a message to them, you know? You don't feel bruised by what Britain has done to you. Who feels bruised by what Britain has done to them? Well, you heard Eric earlier today, a German caller ringing in saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've got 90 days. It's the end of March. I don't know what is going to be my status. I don't know what's going to happen. And the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, I don't know how much influence he had over the fireworks display. It's usually Bob Geldof's company that does it. I'm surprised that the right-wing media hasn't picked up on that, actually. I know he certainly used to own the company that did the fireworks for big events. They've just decided to use this wonderful opportunity when the eyes of the world are upon us to say to all our European friends and neighbours and colleagues, We still love you. You're still welcome. We still like you. The Brexit result, for good or for ill, has sent you a message that you should feel less welcome here. Most of us don't feel that way. Plenty of people who voted to leave the European Union don't want you to feel unwelcome. It's a little bit early for me to get fully on side with anyone who got into bed with the racists now claiming, I can't believe how racist it's all turned out to be. But just a bit early. By the end of 2019, I'll be across that. But in the meantime, here is something nice for some people who are feeling bruised. And you got cross about it. Can you just tell me why? That's all. Let's not fall out. Let's not have a big set to. In the spirit of harmony and peace and New Year's love and understanding, do you actually know why you got cross about it? I know that the Sun has told you to get cross. And Andrew Bridgen is cross, a man so steeped in intelligence and insight that he thinks being English entitles him automatically to an Irish passport. But if the Sun tells you to get cross, Tony Gallagher, the editor of the Sun, devout Catholic that he is telling you to get cross today, have you paused to wonder why? Is there any realistic reason on earth to genuinely get cross about this? 0345 6060 973. And if you do genuinely think that there's something substantive or meaningful in that phrase, love Europe, hate the EU, then you need to understand that people in Europe and in the EU don't make the distinction quite as crassly as we do. To them, they are in many ways interchangeable. So we've sent a message as a population to Europeans, both here and at their own homes, home countries. We've sent a message that essentially has made them feel less welcome. Now, as a Leaver, I fully accept that might not have been your intention. You must hate the way that you've ended up on the same side as history as the people who punch human beings for speaking Spanish on trains or in streets. You must hate that. I genuinely feel for you. It must be awful to realise what you've done, what you've unleashed, what you've got into bed with. But you didn't know that when you were doing it, and perfectly entitled for all those people like me who told you what you were doing. Perfectly intelligent response to ignore me. I would. But that's what you've done now. Surely the only people who are actually angry about this are the people who get angry when they hear a foreign language being spoken on a train. Surely. Or am I wrong? And you are genuinely angry about this for reasons that are both sensible, rational and fair. 0345 6060 973. On a slightly less serious note, could you teach me how to get angry about fireworks? Because it's a hell of a lot easier than trying to explain the issue intelligently and rationally. I should just sit here getting furious. Fireworks! Today's 2 Minutes Hate is directed at fireworks because a small portion of the New Year's Eve display on London's South Bank resembled the European Union flag. Is anyone genuinely cross about that, or are we just being led by the nose by the same dissembling and dishonest right-wing media that essentially caused the Brexit vote in the first place? Or did you really genuinely see it and get upset by fireworks? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. I'm also still accepting donations to Superships. This is a company I've set up in order to run a freight service between Great Yarmouth and Tokyo on the grounds that it's a British business, so Chris Grayling is going to give me £14 million. I'll divvy it all up with you. Don't tell him this, but we'll just take the money and run, yeah? Superships. Edward is in Finchley. Edward, how cross did the fireworks make you?
Hello, James. Well, I wouldn't say I'm cross.
Well, then you've rung the wrong show.
Well, I'd say I was disappointed, but...
Well, because they weren't shiny, and you were expecting bigger displays, or...?
No, I just think it is a shame that, we had the Queen's speech on Christmas Day about coming together and all this sort of thing.
Yes.
And then an event which should have been an innocent marking of the new year, Auld Lang Syne and all that sort of thing, has to be sullied by political messaging.
What was the messaging?
So it's... Well, you only have to read Sadiq's own comments about what the message was.
No, the message from the fireworks. I haven't seen what Sadiq Khan has to say. I'm talking about a firework display. What messaging was in it?
Well, Sadiq Khan said that he was sending a message out to the 1 million EU citizens that live in London. That was his specific...
What was the message?
Yeah, that was his specific...
What was the message?
I just told you.
No, you said he was sending a message out. What was it?
The message is that for some reason that those 1 million people might feel utterly rejected by the fact that people voted to leave the EU.
And he expressed that in a firework.
Well, I don't think the medium of fireworks is his particular forte in expressing
No, but
that.
you said the fireworks sent out a message.
No, Sadiq Khan said that he is using the firework display specifically to send out that message.
And the message is that 1 million people feel bad. That's an odd thing to put out in a firework display.
No, he's not sending out the message that 1 million people feel bad.
Oh, so what is the message?
I just told you. Sadiq Khan said, I'm sending a message to the 1 million EU citizens living in London.
Yeah.
They should not feel rejected by Brexiteers.
But that's the same as what the Queen said. We should all come together.
No, she didn't mention Brexit.
Well, why did you mention the Queen then?
Because because Christmas, like New Year, should be a time that is unsullied by political messaging.
But the message you've just said was that everyone should feel welcome here.
Sadiq Khan specifically chose to break with tradition.
But hang on, who feels unwelcome as a result of his firework display?
Well, Sadiq Khan feels that 1 million EU citizens living in London must feel unwelcome by virtue of the fact that some people voted to leave the EU.
No. You must answer the question that I asked. So the message he sent out with his fireworks was to 1 million people who he believes might feel a little bit bruised by, for example, having to pay money to stay in their own homes. Yeah. So he sent out a message saying, don't feel bruised, feel welcome. And you think that's inappropriate?
No, I don't.
Talk me through why. What word would you use then?
Well, I suppose it is inappropriate, really.
Oh, well, good. So we'll stick with that word then. Why is it inappropriate to tell people that they're welcome?
I'm not doing this word-splitting exercise where I happen to mention a word in my...
So what word would... That's why I invited you to use whatever word you want. So,
yeah, I just told you.
But the message is you people are welcome here.
Sadiq Khan's own
Why is that bad?
No, there's nothing bad about welcoming people.
But you just said there was. You said it was inappropriate.
They feel unwelcome that we voted to leave the political institutions of the European Union.
But you know the answer to that already. They've been told they're going to have to pay money to stay in their own homes. They don't know what their future will involve, and they haven't had their status established. You only need to speak to them, Eduardo. They are feeling bruised. They are feeling they are feeling confused. They are feeling a little bit undervalued. And the message was, don't. We still love you. Why would you be unhappy with that?
The people that voted for Brexit felt a little bit confused and
well, I think that goes without saying, but that's not the question that I'm asking you. Why would you be unhappy with a message that says to your fellow humans
that you're interested in
you are welcome, Edward?
So you're interested in certain equivalents, but not other equivalents.
There is no equivalent, Edward, between people who didn't have a message sent to them by a firework display and people who did have a message sent to them by a firework. Can we just try a little bit harder to explain to people listening why you didn't like a message of welcome being sent to some foreigners who live here?
No, I didn't like what should be an innocent firework.
I thought it was innocent. Saying we love you, you're welcome here is the definition of innocence.
You're not listening to me, James.
I'm listening to every syllable you say, Eduardo. So tell me why being welcoming is bad.
Sadiq Khan broke with tradition of using what should be a festive occasion to welcome in the new year.
It was festive.
He made a deliberate decision to
welcome people.
That event. Now,
it's not politicised to say...
If I hadn't read in the newspaper his comments...
So I have a doormat at home that says welcome on it.
Finish my sentence.
No, I have a doormat at home that says welcome on it. Can you explain to me how that's political?
Sorry, would you say that again?
My doormat at home says welcome on it. Can you explain to me how that's politicising doormats?
It's not politicising because
so why is a firework display that says welcome politicising fireworks?
You've made to put the welcome mat.
Yes. So
I wouldn't have known that the fireworks were necessarily a political messaging unless I'd read Sadiq Khan's own comments about
saying that they're designed to make people feel welcome.
I may have noticed that rather preponderance of the colour blue and gold looks like gold stars, and I may have sort of thought, oh well, maybe that's meant to be a kind of not very good attempt at depicting the EU flag.
Yeah.
But unless I'd actually, it was only through reading Sadiq's
So it wasn't the
comments.
Fireworks that upset you, it was Sadiq Khan's words that upset you?
Well, it was his whole...
Because, I didn't say, give me a ring if you don't like Sadiq Khan's words. I said, give me a ring and tell me why you don't like the fireworks. And the reason you don't like the fireworks is Sadiq Khan said they were designed to make people feel welcome.
No, you're putting words in my mouth, James.
Well, go on, tell me again then.
I told you, I don't like the idea that what should be an innocent firework display is politicised.
But it's not politicised, Edward.
supposing that we had
Who is it directed at in a negative way?
Supposing that we had a Leave mayor, can you imagine the furore that would be created had he decided to politicise the firework event? And
But this is where I'm confused. This is where I'm confused. I don't understand how it's politicised. It didn't say call off Brexit. It didn't say let's have a second vote. It said all of you people who used to live here as equals have had your status diminished. Please don't feel too bad about it. Why is that politicising anything?
It didn't say that. I think you need, before trying to conduct a radio call-in about it, you actually need to read what Sadiq Khan said about it.
Well, I don't want to read what Sadiq Khan said about it because I'm talking about fireworks.
That speaks for itself. But you can't just talk about fireworks.
Why not? Why can't I just talk about fireworks?
Behind the fireworks.
Well, hang on, let's have a look here. It's very low to politicise what is an international public event. It is a betrayal of democracy, and it's what we have come to expect from a very poor mayor of London. Mr. Khan said, we, in my opinion, are one of the greatest cities... That was Andrew Bridgen, by the way.
Right.
We are one of the greatest cities in the world. Tell me, just press a button when you think he's crossed a line, yeah?
Yeah.
So, we are one of the greatest cities in the world. Are we OK with that?
Yeah.
Well, that's quite political.
Oh,
what about all the other cities in the world? He's been quite offensive to them.
Sorry, I don't quite follow your labyrinthine reasoning.
I'm trying to figure where it gets politicised in a way that you don't like. So we're one of the greatest cities in the world. Are you all right with that?
No, I'm not playing this game, James.
Well, you rang in. Of course you're playing this game.
I phoned in.
One of the reasons we are one of the greatest cities in the world is because of the contributions made by Europeans. You told me that I needed to read his words to conduct this conversation, and now I'm reading you the words, and you're saying you don't want to conduct this conversation, Eduardo.
Well, whatever words Sadiq Khan chose to write, it shows that he had to write those words to explain the political message.
But that's what I'm asking you where the political message appears. So we'll start again. We are one of the greatest cities in the world. Is that political?
Well, it's either political or not. Depends on...
Well, exactly. That's why I'm asking you, is it?
Well, it depends on the context, doesn't it?
Well, the context is he's talking about the fireworks.
Well, London has always put on one of the best firework displays.
But I know that. So you just tell me when it becomes politicised. We are one of the greatest cities in the world. Can I tick that off as OK? That's not problematical.
James, yes, that's fine.
OK. One of the reasons we are one of the greatest cities in the world is because of the contribution made by Europeans. Are we all right with that?
Yes, that's perfectly OK.
I think diversity is a strength, and I think what tonight is about is celebrating that diversity.
Yes.
That's all, OK. One of the things...
Let's just stop there a second.
OK, go on then.
So, diversity is our strength, but what about the millions of people that live in this city that aren't from the EU?
Yes, they could look at the fireworks as well.
They left out. Why were they specifically left out?
They weren't specifically left out.
What about the Chinese? What about
because
the
we haven't
Japanese?
Voted to leave India or Japan, have we?
So it is a political message.
No, it's a message to people who've had their status diminished.
It is a political message at that point, then.
At what point?
If he has chosen...
Oh, but now you're talking about the fireworks, not the words.
No, I'm talking about the words.
So which words? Diversity?
You just said to me that Sadiq Khan wants to make the EU citizens feel welcome.
And you said that wasn't what it was about, and I needed to read his words. So now I'm reading them to you.
Yes.
And you're still not happy.
No, I'm pointing out the flaw in the reasoning. That the flaw is that what about...
So you would like him to have had more flags?
Sorry?
More flags?
Well, he specifically just chose... I think it's quite clear, James. I mean, for heaven's sake, the London Eye was depicted as the EU flag.
Yes, I know that. But we weren't supposed to look at that. We're supposed to look at Sadiq Khan's words in order to understand why it was inappropriate.
You're a Brexiteer. You weren't supposed to look at the fireworks at all, because apparently they're not for you.
Well, now you see, I'm glad we got there in the end. So you saw a depiction of the European Union flag and you felt that you were somehow being disqualified from enjoying the fireworks.
Well, it's a bit of a snub, isn't it, to the people that voted Brexit?
No, it isn't. Because you don't want the people who are European Union citizens here to feel unwelcome, do you?
Of course not.
So what's wrong with telling them that they're welcome, then?
Yes, they are.
Well, that's what the fireworks said.
But the idea is that by voting for Brexit, you chose to make those people feel unwell.
No, you didn't. How dare you let anyone say that they know why you voted for Brexit? You voted for Brexit and accidentally 3 million people have ended up feeling unwelcome. So you're very grateful to Sadiq Khan for articulating the fact that you don't want them to feel unwelcome. And not only that, but he's done it through the medium of fireworks. The man's a genius.
Well, I'd like to see him strapped to his own Catherine wheel and sent rolling down Ludgate Hill.
And there's the real, there's the real you, right at the end there, coming out. Threats of violence against an elected mayor. Well, I wonder what it is you've got against him, Edward, apart from his fireworks. Where we will return momentarily to the offensiveness, the alleged offensiveness of Sadiq Khan's fireworks. Edward, who rang us a moment ago, explained that they are political because they... Oh, let me try again. We voted to leave the European Union. As a result of that, quite unintentionally, 3 million people have had their status diminished and their futures thrown into disarray. So the Mayor of London elected during the firework display on New Year's Eve to send them a message of warmth and welcome, and that, from Edward's point of view, is wrong because it made him feel that he was being blamed for the fact that they feel unwelcome and or confused, to which my response was, but that isn't what you wanted at all. Why would you take it personally? Lots of people who voted to leave will be just as dismayed as people who voted to remain are at what's happened to these 3 million people. And, well, I've got to be honest with you, that was the point at which he suggested that Sadiq Khan should be strapped to a firework, which I think we could probably all agree was slightly odd diversion, but not necessarily unillustrative. So what was wrong with it? And are you surprised to feel now all of your anger dissolve and disappear because there are so many more important things in the world than fireworks? Barry's in Norwich. Barry, what would you like to say?
Oh, James, I want to speak to you for a long while, mate. Couple of questions for you first.
No, it doesn't work like that, mate. Sorry. It should have been explained. It should have been explained to you. You ring in. Drives me mad. You ring in to answer my questions, Baz.
Yeah,
come on,
fine.
mate.
Yeah, no, they're quite simple ones. I do ring in. I do listen to you. You do drive me mad, but I do listen to you. Another thing is, do you understand subliminal?
Yes, of course.
Because that flag on that wheel was subliminal. It was sending out a very loud message for those who wanted to hear it, and those who didn't want to hear it got the message
That's the opposite of subliminal, Barry.
It was no. I you know what? I watched it, and to be honest, that would have annoyed me, but I didn't notice it till next day.
Right. So it wasn't a very loud message then, because you didn't hear it.
Well, it wasn't a very loud message, but the whole thing is we're drip-fed subliminal all the time.
Mate, subliminal is when you don't notice something's happening. So there was a case in the French television about 20 years ago when for a nanosecond an image of a politician flashed up during an ident on the news and you didn't know that it had happened, so it gets implanted in your brain without you noticing. Now, I appreciate it didn't end well, but Edward made some decent points, sort of, when he was explaining how you need to read what Sadiq Khan said about it to understand what it was all about. That's the opposite of subliminal.
I think the whole thing is a terrible waste of public money.
Well, you don't like fireworks.
Would you have objected if that wheel had Brexit written in the middle? Would you have objected to it?
I don't think... I mean, it's like the balloon, isn't it? The Donald Trump balloon. I don't think anyone on the other side of the argument would have given a monkeys. They're fireworks.
Would you personally? Would you have said that's not right? Putting Brexit. This is New Year. This is when people have fun. Christ's sake, leave the politics out of this.
But the message was one of welcoming to other human beings. I don't see any politics in it.
With all due respect, James, would you have minded if they'd have put Brexit?
Well, I can't answer that question because I'm going to say no. Of course, I wouldn't have minded, and you're going to go, I don't believe you.
You're on the same side of the fence as me, then, aren't you?
No, because I said I wouldn't have minded. I couldn't give a hoot one way or the other. But what I want to understand is why you think it's political to tell these people who have had their lives turned upside down that they are still welcome.
Well,
that's the bit I don't understand. Hang on, let me get my words out, because I think we could build a bridge here. You clearly voted to leave the European Union.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't. But we are leaving, probably, and 3 million people are really confused and in many cases quite scared. You've heard me speak to them on a very regular basis.
Technically we're leaving. I still don't believe it, but carry on.
But that's not the... OK, so we're not talking about you, Barry. We're talking about the 3 million people that this message was supposedly intended for. It didn't say we're not leaving. It just said you are still welcome here. How is that political?
Well, why... Do you
Just
It was
pause for a minute. No, don't ask me another question. Don't ask me another question. So here is a message. It is, you are still welcome here. It might not feel like that at the moment, but I promise you, the people of Britain still want you to be welcome, whether you're in Norwich.
Why was it necessary?
Well, because they currently feel unwelcome and they currently feel bruised.
Yeah, but
So why is it
We're not unwelcoming to European people. We're unwelcoming to the EU bureaucrats.
No, we're not,
The
mate,
European
because
people,
there's
I
3
love the
million
European
people.
I go there all the time.
Well, that's what Sadiq Khan was saying. He was saying, we love you. And you've rung in to tell me that was wrong.
Stars? Why did he put 28 stars in that wheel? Was that a freak? Was that a coincidence? I don't think it was,
I don't know. I haven't even counted the stars. What I want you to tell me is why is it political?
There's 28 stars in that wheel.
Why is it political to tell people that they're welcome here?
Because it's not. Shouldn't have happened. Brexit, leave, remain. It shouldn't have happened. It was a purely It was a pure fireworks night. It was a pure end of year.
I'm going to have one more go.
No,
all right, mate. And we will part as friends, but have one more go. Why is it political?
Because of the European flag right in the middle of a London Eye.
But we voted to leave the European Union, and he's saying to the people who are still in it that they're still welcome here. That's not political. That's just polite.
Didn't send a message out to the Remainers saying you're still welcome to come and say your thing. It was a very divisive
That just doesn't
thing to
make
do.
sense, though, now, Barry.
It's divisive. It was divisive.
How is it divisive? I'm not divided. I'm reaching out to you and saying, surely we can all agree that our friends from France and Germany are still welcome here. That's the opposite.
Listening, I hear you, and I agree with you.
That's the opposite. There you go. So it's the opposite of divisive. It's brought us together, Barry.
But it has. But
well, there you go. So thank God for Sadiq Khan. The man's a genius. He's brought us together through the medium of fireworks.
But that's completely distanced from the EU. They're bureaucrats.
But you're the one who keeps talking about bureaucrats in the EU. That these fireworks weren't about bureaucrats. It was about 3 million people who were feeling a little bit bruised, and you and me don't want them to feel bruised anymore. And we don't get to do massive fireworks displays in our garden that the whole world can watch. Sadiq Khan does, so he did one. And it worked. Except, of course, for these bits, where people get really cross about it and can't really explain why, and start talking about bureaucrats or claiming that the Mayor of London should be strapped to a firework himself. Just a little bit unnecessary, Baz. Anyway, Happy New Year, one and all. It is 2019, but I think it's fair to say that normal service has been resumed. We'll be back tomorrow morning from 10 o'clock. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. My apologies to Clive and Jonathan and Irene and Anthony. But I think I'll give the last word on this one to Andy in Bournemouth, who's been in touch on the subject of my new company, which if you're just tuning in, you should know it'll be up and running by this time tomorrow, superships.co.uk. We ain't got any boats, but we would like some money off Chris Grayling. Andy in Bournemouth has been in touch to say, I've just started a rival company to yours, Invisible Ships, and we will be competing with you for that contract. Damn you, Andy in Bournemouth.